The room was too sterile, too white. I woke up to the high-pitched, insistent beeping of a machine, a sound that was tracking the fragile, failing rhythm inside my own chest. They called it a cardiac event. I was 31, working as a financial analyst in the cutthroat world of London's Monarch Global, and they called it luck that a coworker found me on the office floor. The doctors had called my emergency contacts, my parents, Arthur and Victoria Hayes. They left messages. No one came. For 3 days, I lay there, tethered to the bed, waiting for a face, a voice, a text. On the third night, a nurse brought my charged phone. The first thing I saw wasn't an apology or a frantic missed call. It was an announcement. My sister Serafina, the family's self-proclaimed luxury vlogger, had tagged me in a photo, a perfect sun-drenched image of my parents, Sarah and Julian, laughing around a picnic table by a lake. The caption cut deeper than any scalpel. Family Day, finally, without the drama. The monitor beside me went wild. I zoomed in on their faces, relaxed, carefree, utterly absent of guilt. They had celebrated my absence. They had replaced me. I didn't text. I didn't cry. I felt a sudden, terrifying stillness, the kind of clarity you only get when the thing you fear most, the ultimate betrayal, has already happened. The family I was working myself to death for didn't just not love me, they preferred me gone. 4 days later, 74 missed calls flashed on my screen, followed by a single desperate message from my father. "Ellie, we need you, now." That was the moment everything shifted. They thought they had cornered me. They didn't know I had just been set free. If you enjoy cinematic stories of betrayal, family conflict, and hard-fought justice, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. I always find it fascinating to read which cities and countries you're listening from, so don't hesitate to write a comment. Let me know where you are listening from. Now, please get comfortable. Happy listening. To understand the cold mathematics of that betrayal, we have to go back to the beginning. We have to go back to the debt I thought was love. I used to believe that exhaustion was just the natural currency you paid to be indispensable. At Monarch Global, nestled deep in the financial heart of London, the atmosphere wasn't competitive, it was predatory. Projects were endless, the data complex, and the deadlines impossible. But somehow, I was always the analyst who stayed past midnight, the one who found the error, the one who signed off on the impossible deals. My colleagues didn't admire my discipline. They were slightly unnerved by it. They didn't know that my drive wasn't fueled by ambition for myself. It was fueled by fear, the terror of failing the people waiting back home. Every hour I billed, every bonus I earned, wasn't just my career. It was the lifeline for a house of cards 4,000 miles away. My father, Arthur Hayes, had been a senior partner in private equity, a man who commanded 7 figures. He liked to tell people he retired early to consult. The truth was, a bad trade and a subsequent investigation had wiped out his capital and his reputation. He'd been temporarily resting for 7 years, refusing to sell the lavish estate, refusing to downsize the lifestyle my mother, Victoria, had grown accustomed to. Victoria, in turn, dedicated her life to maintaining the illusion, the perfect social calendar, the charity dinners, the matching Christmas photos. What she truly managed was Arthur's ego and the family's relentless need for my paycheck. Then there was my sister, Serafina. She was our family's public face, a luxury lifestyle vlogger with a following built on staged opulence. Her ventures, a comprehensive crystal brand, a high-end travel podcast, a line of artisanal teas, failed with predictable, rapid speed. Each failure was followed by a swift, quiet transfer from my account, usually disguised as investment or emergency operational funds. She had the visibility. I carried the entire financial weight. The youngest, Julian, was in design school, a quiet, sensitive soul who claimed to hate the drama, but was an expert in quiet, costly borrowing. A tuition payment here, a credit card cosign there. He never asked loudly, which, in our family, was the most effective form of asking. We looked like the ultimate portrait of success online, the Hayes family, Proof that blood is everything. Sarah posted that line right after I'd wired the money to prevent foreclosure on the estate. Apparently, love had an interest rate attached to it. Only one person ever saw the ledger for what it was: my mother's father, Grandpa Silas. He had been a ruthless accountant for 4 decades, capable of auditing a person's soul simply by reading their spending habits. "You cannot audit love, Eleanor," he told me once, his voice heavy with caution. "But you'll know when the numbers stop adding up." He warned me gently that my parents had started seeing me not as a daughter, but as a perpetual liability account, the endless safety net. I refused to believe him. I was raised on the principle that loyalty was the ultimate repair kit, so I kept fixed. I paid what I shouldn't. I smiled when I shouldn't. The truth? I was disenchanted, terrified that if I ever said no, the conditional love they offered would finally evaporate, leaving me with nothing but the silence of my empty apartment in London. The night before I collapsed, I was still at Monarch Global at 11 p.m., my vision blurring over spreadsheets detailing a billion-dollar merger. My chest had been a vice grip for weeks. I thought it was just the stress of the quarterly reports. It wasn't. As I gathered my things, my phone buzzed. It was Sarah. "Can you cover the security deposit for my new studio? I promise I'll include you in the launch party." I typed a blistering reply, deleted it, and typed the default answer. Sure. That was the last voluntary action I took before the floor of the 35th story came up to meet me. The hospital lights were a cruel, cold white, designed to erase all traces of the outside world. Yet they failed to erase the crushing weight in my chest. When I finally woke, the world was a jagged series of blurs. The ceiling tiles, the constant drip of the IV, the nurses moving like silent ghosts. The doctor, a man with a tired, kind face, explained it simply: severe myocardial stress. I had pushed my heart past its structural limits. "You were lucky your coworker acted fast," he stressed. Lucky. That word felt like a deliberate insult. Luck should not be the foundation of my survival. Family love should have been the barrier that kept me alive. They confirmed they had contacted Arthur and Victoria. "We left several detailed messages," a nurse added gently. Her eyes avoided mine, as if the truth itself was too embarrassing to acknowledge. Hours bled into days. No calls, no flowers. Not a single text message asking, "How are you?" I watched the sunlight traverse the wall and disappear, then reappear the next dawn, marking my solitude. On the 3rd day, the nurse brought in my phone, fully charged. I knew I shouldn't look, but my hand moved before my mind could stop it. The first thing I saw was that dreaded notification. "You've been tagged in a post by an official account." My fingers, still shaking from the trauma, tapped it open. The image loaded slowly, pixel by agonizing pixel. The golden sunlight, the shimmering lake water, the whole Hayes clan centered around a beautiful spread. Arthur, beer in hand, Victoria holding her signature deviled eggs, Julian flashing a relaxed peace sign next to Sarah, and the caption, "Family Day." Finally, without the drama. The beeping beside me erupted into a panicked crescendo, mirroring the sudden, violent surge of blood pressure. The irony was devastating. They were celebrating the very absence that had nearly killed me. I zoomed in on Sarah's face, her smile practiced and flawless. I zoomed in on Victoria, whose eyes showed no trace of worry. No one looked guilty. No one looked like they were missing their eldest daughter, the one who held the entire financial structure together. I feel a chill, deeper than the air conditioning. I had been erased while still clinging to life. I didn't comment. I didn't call. I didn't even send a single word of accusation. I just stared until the screen dimmed and my reflection, pale, exhausted, but fearfully calm, stared back. That kind of calm doesn't come from peace. It comes from absolute clarity. By the 4th morning, I was permitted to walk the corridors, dragging the IV pole like a mocking shadow. The doctor spoke of a long recovery, but he didn't realize the recovery needed was not just of the heart, but of the soul. That evening, I dialed the only contact that still signified safety. "Grandpa Silas," I whispered when he answered on the 2nd ring. "I heard," he said, his voice flat, emotionless, but his tone held the weight of total understanding. You don't have to explain anything." Grandpa Silas arrived 40 minutes later, still wearing the ancient, familiar scent of old wood, coffee, and dry accounting paper. He wasn't the hugging type, never had been. He simply sat beside the bed, his presence a heavy anchor in the flimsy hospital room. He changed at the monitor, then at my face. "So," he said quietly, his voice surgical in its precision, "they finally broke the machine, did they?" I managed a faint smile. "Guess so." He didn't ask for details, didn't pry into the picture or the missed calls. He already knew the story. He had simply been waiting for the final chapter to be written. He stayed the entire day, talking to the nurses, ensuring my insurance coverage was absolute. When the billing clerk mentioned several outstanding balances, Silas didn't flinch. He pulled a sleek tablet from his coat and began typing. "What are you doing?" I asked, confused. "Taking inventory, Eleanor," he stated, his eyes fixed on the screen. "Before you start cutting the cords, you need to know exactly how deep they run. You need to know the cost of your obligation." We went through everything: my checking accounts, the automatic weekly transfers, the car insurance payments I covered for Victoria, the joint credit lines with Arthur I had reluctantly co-signed years ago. My stomach twisted with nausea as the list of financial hemorrhages grew. Money was leaving my accounts like a slow, deliberate leak. Sarah's business lease, Julian's overdue design school tuition, Victoria's yearly dues to a private country club, even a utilities bill in my name for a house I hadn't lived in since university. "How did I let this happen, Grandpa?" I groan, feeling the shame rises like bile. "You mistook it for love," he said simply, without judgment. "They mistook it for entitlement. It is a different kind of mathematics." That night, while the machines hummed their monotonous song, Grandpa Silas showed me how to shut the system down. Not out of spite, but out of absolute necessary self-preservation. He drafted a meticulous spreadsheet detailing every recurring payment, every cosign debt, and handed it to me like a map out of hell. "Tomorrow," he said, folding his newspaper, "we start with the bank." I barely slept. I kept seeing that smiling photo, the sunlight, the lake, and hearing the faint, steady beep of the monitor, now a countdown to my new life. The next morning, from my hospital bed, I called my bank in London. The clerk, my recognized voice. I had been their perfectly reliable client for years. By noon, the auto transfers were canceled. Sarah's allowance account was frozen. Julian's rent deposit was stopped. Victoria's car insurance was removed from my policy. Each click of confirmation over the phone felt like a deep, shuddering breath I hadn't realized I was holding. By evening, the phone began to buzz with a relentless, anxious energy. The carefully constructed peace of the Hayes family had been violently shattered. The silence had been my worst enemy for years. Now it was my greatest weapon. The phone, once a conduit for demands, was now an urgent siren. The first text was from Victoria. "We just heard what happened, darling. Why didn't you tell us you were in the hospital?" "No." "How are you?" "No. We're sorry we missed your calls. Just careful." Wounded accusation, shifting the blame instantly. Then, a softer text. The emotional manipulation begins. "Your father is worried about the mortgage again, Ellie. Please call him." Worried, not sorry. Panicked, not loving. Sarah's texts were next. A frantic flurry of screenshots showing her empty bank account, dramatic crying emojis, and one message, raw with entitlement. "If you don't fix this right now, I will lose everything. You are destroying my career." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed a reply. A single revolutionary word. Good. Julian's attempt was the most insidious. "I don't like them, Ellie. Please don't punish me for their mistakes." I almost laughed. He had used that exact line last year when he needed me to co-sign a student loan he had no intention of servicing. Grandpa Silas, reading the paper across the room, watched me scroll. The corner of his mouth twitched in silent confirmation. "They are not calling because they care about you, Eleanor," he said, folding the paper with the precision of a man filing a hostile takeover. "They are calling because the walls of their comfortable life have begun to fall down. They are cornered." He was right. The panic in their voices wasn't about my health. It was about the sudden, terrifying instability of their cash flow. The next day, as I prepared to check out of the hospital, I received 74 missed calls and the message from Arthur. "This is serious. Call me now. Everything is falling apart." I didn't call back. Grandpa Silas drove me to my London apartment. The flat felt cold, almost alien, as if the very walls were listening for the next family drama. I silenced my phone and watched the rain streak down the window pane. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. They had mistaken my decades of silence and compliance for surrender. They didn't know that silence was the sound of me finally taking back control. 2 days later, I was set up camp at Grandpa Silas's quiet, organized house outside the city. He'd cleared his dining table, transforming it into a war room. Stacks of payment histories, mortgage files, account statements. Years of quiet enabling laid out in neat piles. "Every story leaves a paper trail, Eleanor," he observed. "Yours just happens to be measured in your own blood and pounds sterling." By the time Grandpa Silas and I finished the audit, the picture was devastatingly clear. I hadn't just helped them. I had been the sole undisclosed financier of their entire manufactured existence. Without my income, the illusion of comfort, status, and control they maintained was not sustainable. It was ready to combust. The calls intensified. Arthur showed up, idling outside my apartment building in his luxury sedan, staring up at the windows like a debt collector waiting for a confession. He didn't text, he didn't call the buzzer, he just waited. I didn't go down. That afternoon, the message arrived. "You are about to destroy everything we built. I hope you understand the damage you are causing." Everything we built. The entitlement was breathtaking. I showed the text to Silas. He just nodded grimly. "That sentence says more about his ego than he ever intended. He believes your sacrifice was foundational, not voluntary." And then came the calculated strike. Sarah uploaded a video that night. It was a slow, tearful walkthrough of the family estate, which now appears shockingly empty. Bare walls, scattered boxes. Her voice was a trembling whisper. "They took everything," she sobbed into the camera, "and guess who let them?" The video cut drastic to a cropped photo of me, smiling from a Christmas years ago. The caption, "Sometimes blood doesn't mean family." The comment section explodes. Sympathy, outrage, judgment. Strangers called me ungrateful. Influencers reposted the tragedy. My inbox was flooded with accusations. Silas watched the entire display in stony silence. Then he stood up, pulled out his phone, and made 3 calls. Within 48 hours, we had every relevant document. Foreclosure notices, loan defaults, late fees. They hadn't just struggled. They had leveraged the house equity to pay off Sarah's failed business debt and Julian's credit card balances. I didn't need to expose them. The math did it for me. Still, I filed the fraud report. Silas and his lawyer, Mr. Clean, helped me prepare a meticulous cease and desist order. No contact, no impersonation, no financial claims. We sent it via certified mail to all 3 of them. For the first time since my collapse, I slept through the night. The next morning, however, the real threat arrived. A courier delivered a thick manila envelope to Silas's house. Inside were printed emails between Arthur, Victoria, and a small, predatory law firm. I scanned the text once, then twice, feeling the blood drain from my face. They were attempting to secure legal guardianship over me. The header screams at me, "Emergency petition for temporary conservatorship." Silas sobbed, his gaze steady. "They tried this with your Uncle Andrew years ago. It's their ultimate weapon, turning your own vulnerability against you." This move was desperate, aggressive, and potentially devastating. But we were ready. Because of Silas's foresight, we had already moved all my assets into an untouchable trust. My London doctor had provided statements verifying my stability. My HR department had confirmed I was on medical leave, not terminated. By the time their filing hit the courthouse, our preemptive paperwork had already been logged. Their motion was dead on arrival. But Sarah still hadn't learned. She posted again, mascara running down her face. Mental illness doesn't always look like what you expect. We're just trying to help her before it's too late." The public was sympathetic, but social media has a short memory and a shorter attention span. Someone, somewhere, found her old "family day without the drama" post and stitched it beside her crying video. "So where was that concern when she was in the hospital?" the caption asked. The tide turned instantly. Screenshots of Sarah's sponsored posts during the week I was hospitalized, her private tweets mocking toxic siblings. It all surfaced. Julian's Etsy page was bombarded. Arthur's handful of brokerage clients pulled out. By the end of the week, the family's online empire had collapsed faster than their finances. Grandpa Silas handed me his coffee mug. "You didn't have to lift a finger," he said. His eyes reflect a profound, ancient satisfaction. The truth handled itself. It always does, eventually. That night, a single text arrived from Victoria. "Please, Eleanor, can we talk? It's only fair." I stared at the screen for a long time, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Fair. The word was an insult wrapped in silk. Fair would have been them showing up at the hospital. Fair would have been an honest apology instead of a panicked demand for rescue. I locked the screen and placed the phone face down. Silas looked up from his reading chair. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said quietly, the exhaustion finally lifting. "Just done." But they weren't done with me. The next morning, a courier delivered a heavy envelope. This one wasn't from a lawyer. It was from Arthur himself. Inside was a newly handwritten will, executed the week after their ridiculous conservatorship motion failed. In shaky, desperate script, it declared, "In the event of my death, all assets go to the remaining family who maintains unity. Eleanor is disinherited until she reconciles." I couldn't help the hard, bitter laugh that escaped me. It was the same worn-out manipulation, the promise of future reward and the threat of familial exclusion, just wrapped in the formal guise of legal ink. Silas faintly smiled. "They still think you want something from them. They're not used to someone walking away before the money." That evening, I wrote my final reply. Not a text, not a call, but a formal letter delivered through my attorney, Mr. Clean. It was short, precise, and utterly final. "I hereby waft all present and future rights to the family estate and request permanent, immediate, and full no contact from Arthur Hayes, Victoria Hayes, Seraphina Hayes, and Julian Hayes." I signed it, sealed it, and handed the document to Silas. "File it Monday," I said. "What will you do now?" he asked. I looked toward the window. The oppressive London gray was finally breaking, revealing a sliver of pale sun. "I think I'll rest," I said, "somewhere quieter." For the first time in my adult life, I meant it with absolute conviction. 2 weeks later, the constant buzz of the city faded behind us. Silas and I packed what little I truly cared to keep, one suitcase, my laptop, and a few old photos of the dog, and drove east toward the vast, empty landscapes of the American West. He said he wanted to see the mountains before the heavy winter snows. I didn't argue. I just watched the highway blur mile after mile. The world was finally quiet. The cabin we rented was nestled near a ridge lined with stark, towering pines. No noise, no traffic, no family. Just quiet, clean, and honest. I worked remotely for Monarch Global now, but with fewer hours and boundaries that were ironclad. My days started with black coffee and ended with the sound of the wind scraping the roof. Sometimes messages still trickle through. A distant cousin asking what really happened. A stranger on social media still debating the posts. I never answer. I don't need to let them believe whatever convenient version of the truth makes sense to them. My truth didn't need witnesses anymore. It only needed me. Silas would sit by the window, the paper in his hand, pretending not to watch me breathe, simply easier. "You did it, Eleanor," he said one quiet morning. "You broke the cycle." I smiled, a real smile that reached my eyes. "It only costs everything." He chuckled softly. "That's the discounted price for true freedom." He was right. because what I gained was worth more than all the apologies, all the false inheritances, and all the forced family photos combined. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the provider, the fixer, or the daughter who owed everyone. I was just Eleanor, alive, unowned, and finally free. I used to think that silence meant defeat, that walking away was the same as giving up the fight. But now I know silence can be a choice. It can be a border. It can be a kind of peace that doesn't require anyone's permission or approval. My family still tries to reach out through other people, testing if I'll break the quiet. I never do. Some stories don't need new, toxic chapters. They just need a clean, decisive end. If you've ever been called selfish for finally putting your own survival first, I hope this reminds you that choosing your own peace isn't a betrayal of love. It is the purest act of survival there is. They can keep their posts, their pity, and their version of the truth. I will keep my stillness, my laughter, and my life. If you've ever had to walk away from your own blood to heal, share your story below.